slunk wom glebe, slunk truff, glebe clummit, jaka bibi glebe, jaka wom glebe, jaka fwon glebe game? Yeah. That's the kind of stuff you might hear in today's hidden gem, Gibberers, also known as Esperaization. The box says one name and the rules say another, but it seems like they're calling it Gibberers more, so I'll stick with that. Come join me in my stock photo of a den, and we'll talk about a unique language creation game that will lead to fun memories and a unique bond. Gibberers is all about building a language together. Mechanically, at its heart, it's a team clue-giving game, in the vein of catchphrase or taboo, though with no speed element. One person has a word or short phrase they have to convey to their teammates, and there's a reward for getting it right. But where in taboo there are 5 or so words you're forbidden from saying, in Gibberers your banned list is all words in all known languages. Instead, you can use gestures, at least at first, but mostly you'll use the vocabulary you've been inventing throughout the game. This makes Gibberers far deeper than your typical clue-giving game. There is a connection in every word to everything that's come before it. The game starts by the players collaboratively building a starting vocabulary in the new language of 18 words, 4 of which have to be yes, no, I, and no. They can either use one of the recommended sets of vocabulary words, or pull inspiration from the Generation 0 cards, or just write whatever they think will be useful. You want to have a varied enough vocabulary that you can describe a broad range of topics, from the sun to a wolf to swimming. For each word, the players will invent some pronunciation to go along with it, and you can't use a pronunciation that relates to the word in what the game calls the old language. That'd be English for me. So for eat, I couldn't say chomp or nibble or bit, for instance. Oh, a quick warning, in the future here there will be some spoilers of some of the words that will come up during the games, so go ahead to this timestamp if you want to avoid anything even potentially spoilery. The game works in generations. 3 generations in what they call the casual game, and 5 in the expert game. The games have largely the same rules, so I'll be combining them as I talk about them. The players have to go through some number of cards of each generation, each card having a few options of words to convey to the other players. Here's a Generation 2 card, and I can choose any of these options to convey. Let's pick sword. First, I make up any nonsense word and introduce it to the group. Pick. Looking at what's available to me in my vocabulary, I could say pick avia, slunk wom pick, pick toomp slunk gerb dervla, slunk dervla, pick slunk gerb dervla, pick avia, jaka gerb wom pick. In the first 2 generations, I can use words as well as gestures, turning it into a sort of charades adjacent experience, so I can make some swinging motions to drive it home too. I definitely prefer leaning more on the language though, to get the hang of using it for later generations when I can't use it. Ideally, this turns into a conversation with questions and answers happening all within the new language. So rather than just me reciting a definition and them guessing, they can ask questions to determine if it's a living thing, if it's hot, if it's wet, if they eat it, and so on. All in the new language. Thus the importance of having yes and no in the vocabulary. After some time, if any of the guessers thinks they have a guess, they can say the equivalent of I know and make their guess. If they're right, the clue giving ends and the new word enters the shared vocabulary. If they're wrong, that's okay, the dialogue can continue and they can make more guesses. Every guess, right or wrong, costs 1 token. These replenish to some quantity every round based on what generation is currently being played, so you can try quite a few times. Trial and error is quite normal. There are some other aids to clue giving, which vary depending on what game mode you're using. A reliable way is to add what's called a support word, a word that's not on the current card but could be a helpful stepping stone. So if I'm trying to convey that fuma is wolf, but I don't yet have the concept of an animal in our dictionary, perhaps I could introduce the concept of a glargo, which is something like dervla gerb slunk, or alive and not human. And then say fuma glargo, fuma shuf ostu glargo. Or fuma is a glargo, an animal, and a fuma eats smaller animals. So that might be a helping stone. Adding the support word is free once around, or the team could spend 2 tokens to outright define the support word if people are uncertain. Either way, this support word will be added to the dictionary, both the pronunciation and meaning, after this turn. And I can refer to the glargo along with the fuma for every subsequent word. In my couple play, support words have proven rather useful, though not as widely used as they could be. I imagine that as we become more comfortable with the game, we'll use support words more and more often. They are potentially ripe for abuse, as you can just kind of introduce and abandon a support word to get a free new word to your dictionary, at the cost of a little confusion maybe. It's also a bit clunky that the guessers can't make official guesses on the support word. Both of these have already led to some online discussion on house rules, because they just stand out as being a bit against the spirit of the game. The generations introduce trickier and trickier concepts as you go on, since you've got a richer vocabulary to build on. Mirroring the progress of humanity throughout the millennia, the first generation has very basic concepts in it, often things found in nature that anyone could understand. The second generation has slightly more complex stuff, like the card with sword on it. The third generation feels like a big jump in difficulty after this, not only because gestures are forbidden, but because the complexity and abstractness of the words increases greatly. The casual game ends with a single third generation card, and the group wins or loses based on a successful guess on this one card. It's a lot of pressure, and sometimes this leads to a hesitant group with no one wanting to commit to be the one to possibly ruin the game for everyone by making a wrong guess. But they have to remember that it's not really all hinging on this moment, since the goal of the entire rest of the game is based on getting a wide variety of useful words added to your dictionary. The expert game has several third generation cards, a couple fourth generation cards, and a single fifth generation card. And these fourth and fifth generation words are hard. Some of them I don't really even know what they mean in English. I know they're intentionally trickier words, but I do wonder if there's a cultural or language barrier between the game's native Japan and me here in the US. Are the Akashic records better known there than here, for instance? I have no idea. But getting any of them is a real feat, and it does feel exciting and memorable when you manage to guess one of these. So I don't mind that some of the difficulty is through the roof. There are at least 5 options on any card, and I can just go with whatever works with the vocabulary we've established. Scoring in the expert game is based on chips you acquire from words throughout the game, with some bonuses for sets and for extra tricky words, pushing you to use a variety of categories and not stay purely in your comfort zone. It has the same kind of rating scale seen in many cooperative party games like Just One, So Clover, or Wavelength, though amusingly there's a typographical error in at least the English rulebook, so that if you score between 19 and 24 points, you don't get any ranking. So, Gibberers is, in my opinion, a really cool game. It takes a simple, semi-disposable concept as seen in hundreds of other games and makes each word impactful. It's a longer, but more unified experience, and has opportunities to make everyone at the table feel important, have big moments, and demonstrate cleverness. The fact that this all happens while speaking, gibberish, thus the name of the game, gives it some extra wonderful flavor. Many weeks after a play, we can reference that jujujuj or dee-dee-ha-ho were these certain words, because those were key moments where good clue giving met great dialogue and led to an amazing guess. It's really cool. I recommend the longer expert game if you have the time, since you get to really stress test the limits of your hastily constructed language. The box's estimate of 3 hours is overselling it by double or so don't be scared. Now, the grievances. I've already talked about the big ones, support words. They're poorly explained in the rules, with key points like them being revealed after a turn not being explicit in the rulebook. I only know what I know, thanks to the publisher clarifying some points on BoardGameGeek. The rulebooks in general really aren't great, and confusingly they published 2 rulebooks with quite different styles, one for the casual game and one for expert, even though they're almost identical inside, only substantially differing in the endgame and in some of the ways you can receive clues. Hunting for these differences caused unnecessary confusion, and I imagine if this gets a new edition, they will clean that up. There are some other ambiguities on multiple words in a single line and the use of proper nouns that are left out as well. Another thing, after 6 plays, I don't have enough paper slips anymore in the box. I will have to cut up my own slips of paper or source some other writing surface. Not a huge deal, but a bit annoying that they only supplied enough for 6 plays. Another issue I've seen raised, and one I agree with to a point, is that you're not really making a language. There's no grammar, for one. Your clues are almost definitely going to start with piles of nouns and adjectives, and even once you decide to add some verbs and prepositions in there, it's extremely natural, and in no way discouraged, to exactly mimic the structure of the old language. So for me, just English with word substitutions. The words don't develop and evolve over time. There aren't any restrictions on phonotactics, that's the way that word sounds are structured. And there's nothing that's a tricky or inexact translation between the old and new language. Everything's one-to-one. I think this is honestly fine for the kind of game it is. It's a tricky clue-giving game, not a language simulator, but the game does bill itself as inventing a new language. For that kind of experience, you have to go to something else like the RPG dialect. So if you're experiencing something a bit more linguistically and academically interesting or deep, that's not what you're getting with Gibberers. But despite its flaws and its greater gameplay length and depth compared to your taboo, catchphrase, password, I highly recommend giving this a shot if anything in that genre interests you at all. It's fresh. It's full of puzzles and laughs. It's thinky without being dry. It causes fun conversations. It's beyond just a party game. And that's why it's hidden gem number 4 in my collection. I'm excited for you to join me again sometime. Thanks for visiting.